by speeding up its energy transformation. Despite Africa's great potential for clean energy, only a tiny fraction of the world's renewables is installed here. The African continent is growing faster than ever, and it simply can no longer afford more investments in the dirty and fragile economy of the past. Today, we're at a turning point. The recovery plans are the once-in-history push to radically change direction. We are here to make it happen.
That's me.
At RES4Africa, we stand for Africa.
Just a minute.
We believe in its huge potential. We believe in its innate energy. We believe in its growth. And we believe that all it needs is an enabling environment for its full development. At RES4Africa, we care for Africa. That's why we believe that clean energy is the only way to go. Because renewables mean more affordability. Because renewables mean more jobs. Because renewables mean more value. Because renewables mean more resilience, social justice, and health. At RES4Africa, we join for Africa, a unique blend of expertise along the whole value chain of renewables, joining forces to accelerate the transition towards a sustainable and inclusive future. At RES4Africa, we innovate for Africa. We constantly look for new, improved energy solutions to provide not just clean and powerful electricity, but also cutting-edge and reliable plants, electrical grids that guarantee quality and stability through digitalization and storage. At RES4Africa, we act for Africa. We promote dialogue between governments and private players to define conscious, long-term policies, encouraging adequate investments. We share know-how with all stakeholders to promote the full development of Africa together. We train locals on the field to share our expertise and make them owners of their energy. And we never, ever stop looking for new and win-win business models made of African DNA. With a long-term green recovery strategy, we can finally build back better in Africa, ensuring universal access to energy, making its economy more resilient, and leading the whole continent straight into a sustainable era. We are RES4Africa. Our mission is to build a better future through better energy. In Africa, with Africa, for Africa.
Good morning. Ciao, everybody. Good morning. I can't hear you. Good morning. How are you doing today? Welcome to Rome. For those of you who are here for the first time, everybody has been to Rome, haven't we all? Well, my name is Joy Doreen Bira, and I'm going to be your moderator and master of ceremonies for today. And I'm so excited to be here because it's been 10 years of the RES4Africa Foundation. And this 10th anniversary is just taking us through the journey that we've been on since we began. And it's been a journey of networks, building partnerships, but also making strategic investments. So what are the lessons that we've learned over the past 10 years? And what are the investments we need to make over the next 10 years and going beyond the 10 years, which is why we're here. So a very warm welcome to us all. And I hope that we're going to have a fantastic day. We are going to connect the dots, see where we might have gone wrong or where we went right about investing in renewable energy solutions across the African continent. So, which is why we're here, to set priorities for Africa's sustainable energy transition. So feel at home. I'm going to start by giving us the house rules in case you want to use the washroom. You can use, the washrooms are on your extreme right. If you take a walk through the back door, you'll be able to see the washrooms on the extreme right. The ladies and the gents are right there. And if you want to access the internet, if you check your Wi-Fi connections, there is a username called La Lanterna. So the password is Lanterna Roma, or Lanterna Roma. So that's the Wi-Fi password. So, good morning once again. I'm hoping to get a better response this time. Good morning once again.
Good morning.
That's better. That's way, way better. So let's kick this off by having our welcoming remarks from none other than our Secretary General, Mr. Roberto Vigorti.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Today, in theory, is a celebration. I don't like celebration, particularly at my age. I prefer to set the challenge for the next 5 years, Salvatore, not 10. But certainly, today we are here in a difficult moment. We keep telling to our African friends what's next after COVID. We keep telling them what's next after the Ukraine war and gas crisis. This morning there was a message on the crisis for hunger in Africa. So we still believe that what we are going to propose, clean energy for Africa, is still valid even more. Now, because I am the Secretary General, because I'm the only one who knows everything about what's behind, that's why I have so many medals here, I will start, I will leave with Salvatore, the President, the pleasure to explain to you who we are now. I will go back a little bit in 10 minutes for 10 years. So, June 2011, somebody thought, I was still in Paris for the OME, that for the tavoli tematici of the Expo in 2015, we should do something called Initiative for Solution by Renewable Energy Material. I found this in this verbatim old way. So it never happened, actually, but the idea was the following. Those wind generators are the first one in Zafarana in Egypt, because I was there by chance and I took a picture. So this was the idea. But then, of course, we say, okay, we have to deal with all these people existing already. So what we are going to invent, not only this one, but also the idea that the mainstream at that time, you may remember, was a desert tech approach. The only way to do renewable in Northern Africa was to export to Europe, so we could use our incentive. And we thought that's not really what we want, but this was mainstream, particularly in Germany, particularly in Munich Re, the Deutsche Bank, and so on. So we said, maybe we have to do this differently. And we say, yes, we found out that the northern part, we have already a stable power system, overcapacity, integration, while in the south, in the Mediterranean, with dynamic power system and particularly increasing. So I said, why we have to say that we have to do renewable for the Europe? Once again, a little bit colonialist. So we had to change the narrative. And you know, this is the famous way how we could mark this new message. And of course, the role we played is, no, I think I'm missing one slide, maybe? No, maybe I changed order. This was, of course, the purpose, I think more or less are the same. Network, think tank, industrial platform facilitator. But then we said, how we are going to mark this wonderful idea? And we thought the only way to mark strongly against all the others was to go back to 1154, because this is the Mediterranean. I remember, Salvatore, I was in Enel there. Mr. Vigorti, you have one slide upside down. Can we turn around and say, no, no, don't do that. This is exactly. And we said, this is the Mediterranean now, and this is not me. It is Mr. Mohammed El Adrisi, who was a famous geographer at the kingdom of King Roger II in Sicily, and the Tabula Rogeriana is still in Paris. There are a few copies. This was the mainstream for the Mediterranean and the energy in the time. So this was our, I'm glad to say after 10 years, this shocked a little bit people, but This is still there. This is big because the king was there, And then RES4Med slowly became RES4Africa, and you see how many things we are adding. Somebody thinks too many, but we are asked to go to investment, bankability, job creation, infrastructure and grid, reskilling, gender and youth. We are asking more. And now maybe we do green hydrogen, maybe we do battery and system. So I wonder, and up to for you, how long we have to extend the role of private sector in dealing with the African player. So this is the way, this by the way is in the book, you say. But then remember, we say, what about Africa? Now, are you sure that you know how big Africa is? This is a famous Mercator projection. This was done to allow navigator from Europe to the United States to America. It was nice because, Mercator is like you put wrap a piece of paper on the globe, you open up, so Greenland becomes huge, and also the South Pole. Actually, it's not true. If you use the true size, this is the true size of Africa. Maybe some of you know already, but this is important. Africa is huge. Much bigger than we thought. And that's why it's a big challenge, a big pleasure for us to try to support and share with them. And because people didn't believe, I had to put this next slide, actually, which is the size of Africa. Can you imagine that, sorry, go ahead. Can you imagine that United States is here, China is here, India is here, and because people didn't believe, I put even the square kilometer. This is Africa, a huge continent, a huge opportunity, a huge challenge. That's to be sure that don't use anymore a Mercator approach unless you are a navigator who wants to go from the Netherlands to United States. So this is important. You see, Italy, my country is here, see here, nice. So then we said, there is so much to be done. All these are the world global challenge, all of them apply to Africa. I don't want to go in detail, you know very well. And then we said, we found out, we made a book, it says, connecting the dots. We found out in the last 10 years, only 2% of the renewable worldwide were in Africa. How come? You see, the Africa is only 19 gigawatt, Europe plus 270, China plus 500. Why only 2%? You see, this is not the case. So when people announce by 2030, 2050, we'll do that, let's be sure that we don't follow the derivative. It's very low. And then we found out in this book, and we not comment, you can, by the way, download this book from our website. Thank you for the one who did, Enrique and Luca. And all our books can be downloaded from our website for free. The more people know about what we do, the better. We have no password, no registration, just download, suck, rub everything, and tell us what you think about. So these are the issues. So they say, this is the African issue. So they say, well, electricity is very important. Many of my company here, my member, do deal with electricity. We know there are other problems in Africa, clean cooking, hunger, health. We concentrate on electricity because we think it's the blood of any growth. And so the access, the famous 600 million, you know what? The IEA says 30 more million who actually were connected don't use it because they cannot afford. So we have 630 million. The 30 million are there with the meter and they don't want to use it because otherwise it costs too much. And then we have losses, my God. Then we have unreliability. You know, the people who have the power don't have enough quality. 4% of GDP lost. That's the World Bank estimate. And then integration and investment. And of course, the way to feed this is for Southern Africa, for the Sub-Saharan Africa, are all three: grid extension, mini grid, standalone system. This is the IEA old version, but I think it is still valid. So we said, look at this city. This city is Johannesburg. On the left, you see California. On the right, you see Bidonville. Now, can you imagine the problem? Well, you can put a meter on the left. They pay. What about feeding these people with, peri-urban, we call it peri-urban to be elegant, peri-urban air, those slums. Are you sure we can deal with that? What about Nairobi? On the top, you see again California. On the south, you see just a wall. You see the rest of Africa. So I think this is something we care. And I think that's why not only renewable, but also infrastructure are so important. There's a book with all these pictures. If you want, I will say. So we concentrate, to be sure, on electricity. We think the universal access, meaning access all, grid, mini-grid, standalone, for affordable, reliable, and sustainable, because it's for people, for prosperity, and for planet. And therefore, I'm going to conclude. These are our actions. We advocate, we analyze, we train, we also support, and I put there in these colors the action we do. And books are there. Today you got this wonderful book, which is our Challenge for the Future, but we had this wonderful book as well. I'm going to sell, they're for free. It tells you more water, more renewable, more water, more food, more Africa. This is also a landmark, because water, energy, food is a solution. That people think sometimes, maybe Bernabé thinks, you go there, put a mini grid, put the meter, they pay. No, they need all three of them, otherwise they will not go. And we prove that if you do this, we can calculate also how many children will go to school, because the family will get more wealth. So this is really a fascinating topic. And of course, last year we did the risk investment with Renew Africa, telling the Commission, please try to be consistent and prepare something strong for the European and international investor to go there. All this, I must say, this was the first thing we did. I brought to you to show a difference. This was the RES4Med I found in my archive. Wonderful. This is a Sicilian windmill with a little bit, we just, so I put a brodel, what is material? I don't know, it was a poem. But this was the beginning here, and now we are there. And this is how this happened. I have my team behind there. This is why things happen, because I have a wonderful dream team of 32 people, more or less. You see, all in the room. You can ask a photographer if you want. And also the other one here. Thank you so much to you. And this is, look how nice they were to put average age above 51, for me. Actually, I am the red one. But I am 40 years older than the average of these kids. But I can still teach them a lot. And we are, of course, country average gender. We are more than politically correct. Education. And I finish with one slide. I saw in 2011 in the Frankfurt airport, when I was changing a plane, I saw this one. I said 0.3% of energy solar on Sahara could feed all Europe. We see there a world of opportunity. And I start thinking about that. But then, of course, the action is to African people. African people, you see the opportunity. We want to work with you, invest with you, and make this happen. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Roberto Vigotti. And if you'd allow me stand here, so I don't have to keep walking up there every now and again, I'd now like to invite Mr. Salvatore Bernabé, who is the president, RES4Africa Foundation.
Morning. The truth is difficult to speak after Roberto's speech. I would ask to you an applause to Roberto once more. Roberto, you are really incredible. So good morning to everyone. I'm very happy as president of RES4Africa to stay here with you today. I would like, first of all, to thank all the team that you have seen with their picture, because they organized this wonderful event. So I share their philosophy, work hard, party harder. So I would like to ask also another applause for the team of RES4Africa. Thank you, thank you. RES4Africa has been doing an incredible job. I've been president for 1.5 years now, so I didn't start the adventure like Roberto did, but the reality is that I can feel this energy, this passion of all people who are in touch with RES4Africa. They're like contaminated by this energy, this passion. And Roberto told you the past about RES4Africa, and I would like to speak to you about the present and the future of the foundation. RES4Africa has a clear objective to support Africa's just energy transition in order to achieve access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. In other words, to reach the objective number 7 of SDGs. But the activity of foundations like RES4Africa is very much needed because, as Roberto remembered, more than 75% of the African population still lack access to energy, and only these 2% of renewables of the total worldwide have been built in Africa. So renewable energy investment are very much needed. And if we consider the huge potential that this continent has, we need that this is a good recipe to have a long-lasting and sustainable economic development. I prefer to speak about the sustainable development of Africa rather than energy transition of Africa. Energy access, energy independence, but also new jobs creation and local competitive advantage. So the foundation, with its very noble mission of creating a favorable condition for scaling up investment in clean energy technologies, is still working with a lot of initiatives that Roberto summarized very well in all the books for make these dreams come true. So today we represent here, our foundation grew a lot in the latest years, and today we represent more than 30 international companies, but we are also dialoguing at the same time with more than 60 international regional partners, from the United Nations, international organizations, banks, international financial institutions, non-governmental organizations, cooperation agencies, regional organizations, private organizations, academia, research centers, public and private utilities. So we gather a network of numerous members from the energy sectors and high-level partners to ensure a constant dialogue with the most relevant energy stakeholders, willing to mobilize investment in clean energy technologies, functioning as a bridge between Europe and Africa. So having a strong partnership between Europe and Africa is even more today a unique opportunity for us to join forces in rebuilding our economies and societies on more inclusive and resilient principles. And I take the opportunity of this day also to thank Marina Sereni, Italy's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, for being here with us today. And this year we have also a more powerful ally. I would like also to mention the advisory board of RES4Africa that we had the pleasure to kick off yesterday. It's made up of independent experts and energy leaders from our international partners that can provide with high-level and strategical advice in areas of relevant importance for the Foundation. So thank you very much also to the members of the advisory board for joining us and starting a new journey together. But let's see now, in the following chart, please, what are the main programs about the present and the future of RES4Africa. So despite the current global situation, I would like also to thank one more, the Foundation, because it has been able to be responsible and able, even in this situation, to push the agenda even further with new operative instruments and renovated partnership, such as the strengthened dialogue with the European Commission and with UNICA. The Foundation has been working on many very diverse activities, and you can see here all of our strategic programs. I will not go into details of all of them, but I would like to focus in particular on two very important initiatives that are the Missing Link and Renew Africa. So what is Missing Link? Our Missing Link analysis has established an innovative and comprehensive analytical framework to investigate the ability of Africa policy and regulatory framework in enabling private-led investment across 17 countries of Africa. In other words, this is a program built upon private sector requirement. This is very important, that it contains the requirement to the private sector that should be attracted to Africa. So that programs want to improve the openness, the attractiveness, and the readiness of African electricity market. So unlocking Africa's renewables energy potential requires to bridge this missing link between the commitments and the action. So we carry on this project with UNICA, United Economic Commission for Africa, led by Vera Songe, Under Secretary General of United Nations. Our collaboration started 4 years ago in 2018, and the program is meant to promote reforms of the policy and regulatory environment that stimulates private investment in participating in electricity infrastructure. It means generation, but also transmission, distribution of grid. This program is sponsored by Enel Foundation, and as a knowledge partner is participating AFRI. So if you look at the timeline of this project, you see that after setting the methodology 3 years ago, collecting the data of these 17 countries in 2020, last year started the dissemination of the results. And we shall release the first 8-country report soon. And by the end of the year, also a regional and then continental report which will precise recommendation for the African governments. Let's skip now to the second very important initiative, that is Renew Africa. One of the Foundation's flagship program, an industry, once more, industry-based initiative advocating for the creation of a comprehensive European de-risking program supporting renewable energy investment. If the first program is about regulation, regulatory framework, policies, that is one of the ingredients, on the element to attract investment, then there is another important point, another barrier, that is the de-risking of the general framework. So at the moment, the African climate ambitions are hampered by insufficient public funding, while persistent investment barriers deter the private sector for investing in the continent. So there are 3 key elements that we identified to encourage the participation of the private sector. A properly designed stable policy and regulatory framework, missing link, a mature developed project, and this is the task of the developer and to mature this project, but then tools to mitigate high investment risks. So the Renew Africa initiatives, launched back in 2019, represent a platform that brings together more than 27 players in Europe's renewable energy industry. They are operators, manufacturers, public and private financial institutions, industry association, and think tank, with the defined and clear objective to invest in Africa. The program proposal is to deliver a comprehensive end-to-end support along the entire project lifecycle for all the renewable energy technologies, infrastructure, and grids in all African countries, and giving priority to particular projects, utility scales bigger than 50 megawatt. The nature of the project comprises policy dialogue, capacity building, technical assistance, and financial support. And here I would like also to focus on the principal streams of the project in the next charts, please. Okay, so we have the financial stream, then the outreach in Africa, and advocacy in Brussels. And here I want to elaborate on the first stream, the financial stream, because here we are in front of us a unique opportunity. Some of you probably already know that has been opened an investment window under the EFSD Plus that will close on July 20th. So here my call is for all the DFSIs, the development financial institutions of Europe, to coordinate together just one coordinated proposal to the European Commission. We have an incredible opportunity this year to make it happen. My call also is for a joint action, an action echoed also by the Investment European Bank that has resulted so far in the collaboration between CDP, EIB, and EDFI. And I would like to call also to KfW, to Proparco, to FMO to join this effort, because together we think that with this window of opportunity, we could also reach finally the objective of having a new financial guarantee, a new de-risking framework that would avoid fragmentation and would allow all the several industry players that want to invest in Africa to have a better instruments to de-risk the investment. The second streams is about outreach. So we continue to do this activity in all the African countries. We selected some countries to start with, and we have already reached Mozambique and Kenya this year, and we will reach soon Senegal, Botswana, Tanzania, and Ivory Coast. And the last stream is about advocacy in Brussels. I would like to take the opportunity also to thank in particular Ken Duns, who I met also in Brussels a couple of months ago, for his continuous support, his general direction, and also all the other general direction in Brussels who are supporting us. So I would say that Renew Africa at the end gather different efforts that have been done in the past and try to obtain a very concrete result, this de-risking framework to unlock this investment for Africa. And to finish my intervention, I would like to focus on something that we launched last year, that it was quite obvious, but so far we didn't devote so much attention, although the average age of the foundation is 30 years, more or less. So we used to work with young people, but we wanted to involve more young people. So that's why we launched this youth empowerment program. The idea is to scale up the collaboration between the renewable energy industry and young African people to jointly boost youth empowerment. Africa's clean energy development will require skilling the next generation of African energy workers, including many skilled energy professionals, from technicians to entrepreneurs, policymakers, and financials. That's why we already developed a program that most of you know very well, a program of training, high-quality training. I would like to remember that about 300 professionals from ministries, regulatory agencies, utilities, finance institutions from 40 countries of Africa attend periodically our online courses or advanced training. But we want to do more. We want to go from the training for young people to involve young people in our decision, in our activity. So RES4Africa identifies the youth and young entrepreneurs as the backbone of the sustainable future for Africa. But it's quite obvious if you consider that today, people aging from 15 to 24 years old are 250 million. But in 2050, there will be 850 million. So it's very much needed to involve the young people because they will be really the backbone of the future development of Africa. So we want to increase the collaboration between renewable energy industry and young African people. And in order to do that, we will launch this program that is composed of 4 main pillars. The first is about education. The second is about engagement. The third is about consulting. And the fourth one is about support. And we have to do so by activating also and leveraging on our extended network of both local and regional partners. And I refer to Youth Network, C4All, IRENA, RES4Africa Alumni Network, but also local African Students Association and different organizations. And in the next chart, we can see in this one what we mean about education. Education means widening the geographical scope and the frequency of RES4Africa capacity building, but also expanding the didactic contents of our training with soft and business skills, proposing mentoring to guide and support young innovators through their professional growth and development. If we go to the engagement, we would like also to mention the youth talks that offer visibility to young talent of the Year Award activities on topics related to the energy sector, the access to energy in Africa, and the participation of youth in it. But then let me also mention some of these young people who are here today. And I go to the third point, the consult. We are involved in our advisory board 2 representatives of the young generation of Africa. I would like to also mention Ugo Chubo Vadiani, Special Assistant to the C4All CEO and Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General. I don't see you, Ugo. Where are you? Is Ugo there? Is he sleeping? No? Give a ring to him. And Esther Vanza, I don't know if Esther is here, that is co-founder of Reino Energy. An applause to Esther. So it's a concrete action to have involved 2 young people within our advisory board. And then we are creating the Youth Task Force to identify new synergies on youth-related aspects within our well-established RES4Africa programs initiatives. And finally, there is the pillar of the support. And once more, I would like to mention a person who joined us today, and I'm sure she should be here in the room. The support pillar want to support young talents in becoming future energy entrepreneurs and leaders by developing and scaling up their business. So we launched the Microgrid Academy some years ago, and each year we also reward the talent through a ceremony. And a couple of years ago, we awarded Nora Magero. I don't know if she's here. Nora? You should know that Nora won the award last year, and she's becoming a change maker with her entrepreneurial idea, Drop Access, that then she will talk more about. And she raised more than $100,000 alone, starting from an initial small support received from RES4Africa. So congratulations again. And our last initiative about the support pillars is the RES4Africa Youth Fund that we are elaborating. You can see phase 1, 2, and 3. We are now in the phase 1 feasibility study, but it will be another tool to foster the entrepreneurship and the development of a young generation. So, finishing my speech now, being the president of RES4Africa has been in the last year and a half a very intense activity because of the energy of Roberto, because you are transported by his energy. You cannot say, no, I don't feel touched by this. You are contaminated, and it's a joy to collaborate with this foundation. An impressive work has been done so far, but we are determined to do more. And just to conclude and to resume, we are determined to give our contribution and to work for the world to come through increasing the market openness, attractiveness, and readiness, and the Missing Link initiative, in developing and comprehensive de-risking instruments to unlock Africa's huge potential, the Renew Africa initiatives, and to educate, engage, consult, and support the African youth in becoming future energy leader. And to succeed, we cannot act alone. We need to engage government, private sector, academies, and last but not least, people. And you also that are here in the room, you are interested, I'm sure you are willing to partner with RES4Africa to make this happen. So I conclude my speech with this final consideration. Renewable energy is an industry that allows to unlock billions of investment, to create new jobs, to give the cheapest solution of access to electricity to people. This is very important. And throughout the continent, this could be done. Electricity is an activating pillar for the economy. But in this time, we don't have to forget that we are already living in the midst of an emergency, which is the climate change, which will not stop unless we take important action on our own. So the green revolution in Africa has never been more urgent for these two reasons. And I really, truly hope and believe that it starts from all of us here today, joining forces to tackle this challenge. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barnabé. And our next speaker is going to be joining us virtually. And for the next 10 minutes, I would like for us to pay attention to our screen here so we can hear from Mr. Francesco Starace, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Enel and also the Chair for Sustainable Energy for All. So let's fix our eyes here and pay attention to that. Thank you so much, Mr. Barnabé. And it's also great to know that the young people from Africa are forming such a great force when it comes to moving Africa's sustainable energy forward. So let's now hear from Mr. Francesco Starace, the Chief Executive Officer for Enel.
Dear friends of RES4Africa, it's a real pleasure for me to be here, to be able to record this message to all of you. And it's, let's say, past a decade. We're here to celebrate the first decade of the foundation and its activities. And I think it's interesting that we look a little bit in the past, we take stock of these 10 years, reflect on what happened and what the trends are, what the present situation is, and look also at the next decade and the next future. So if we go through briefly the past decade, we can say that we have had a sweeping 10 years that can be characterized from the point of view of energy as clearly the renewable energy decade. During this decade, the renewable energy production facilities and technologies have established as the backbone of the generation for the next decade and so forth. So it's the present future of generation nowadays. Let's think of what are the attributes of this new wave of technologies and generation capabilities that we all have at this point. And the attributes are that energy produced by renewable energy is cheap. It's definitely more competitive than other sources today. It is fast. It can be established as a production facility in less than 2 years, sometimes even less. It is scalable, so you can grow up renewable energy capacity as needs arise. It requires heavy interconnectivity, so plants need to be well connected in order to give the best benefits. It is generating jobs. It is providing energy independence, and obviously, last but not least, it is good for the environment. So this is what we have. This is what has been established as an opportunity for the next decades during the past 10 years. What are the needs for these capabilities to be fully deployed in Africa? Well, they are the same that exist everywhere else in the world. Like, as I said, a lot of interconnectivity, good grids, that means. There is another attribute that is coming together with this new technology array of generating facilities, which is the need for upfront financing. So it requires a lot of engagement from institutions and multilateral agencies to de-risk the environment, the financial environment for investors to really kick in this revolution. And that is a key point. So when we look at this and put it in the context that we are facing today, in the present, across the continent, we have a clear SDG 7 focus. So Africa is today the continent in which there is a highest concentration of population still lacking access or reliable access to clean energy. So there's a big focus on SDG 7, and Sustainable Energy for All, for example, is one of the UN agencies that are working hard at that. There is demographic growth. It's one of the continents in the world with the largest and fastest demographic growth. As a consequence of that, there is an ongoing sweeping urbanization trend. So the population is growing and it's moving into large metropolitan areas across Africa. There is also a situation of institutional fragmentation, which is the result of the setup that Africa has reached over the past century in terms of states, independent states. There is a large number of independent states across Africa, and that clearly entails a certain fragmentation in the institutional background. Africa is a large provider of raw materials for the world, so it's a big investment opportunity from the mining sectors and from the infrastructure sector that are fundamental for raw materials to come about. But Africa is also the land of incredibly strong entrepreneurship. So the concentration of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs that can be found across Africa is large. Why I'm saying this is that this is often not fully understood. Africa has a potential to develop its own economics and not just remain a raw material exporter around the world. And that is a key point that I think we should reflect upon for a view of the future of Africa. Where is this future? Physically, the future of Africa lies in cities, in large metropolitan areas. In this sense, Africa is not different than many other parts of the world. What happens in large metropolitan areas shapes the world. And this is going to happen in Africa too. So let's have a look at the metropolitan dimension of Africa for the future, because that's where the battle is won or lost. That's where entrepreneurs are going to bring their idea to fruition and serve large markets. That's where bright people are going to find their future evolution, and that's where the brain power that Africa has can be put at work and can be generating welfare and well-being for all Africans. That's where the big networks need to be deployed in order for cities to become good places where to live. So there is a big effort to develop electricity and transmission networks across Africa in cities, starting from cities. And that's where I think, and it's not what I think, but it's where it happens to be, that's where the institution of Africa today work. And I think that's where RES4Africa can have a big impact, focusing on what happened to be a very important layer of activity of RES4Africa for the past 10 years, and I think it should continue for the next 10, that is the capacity building activity. Capacity building is intended in bringing to the African institutions and to the politicians and the governments of Africa and all the technical cadres of the member states of the African Union, bringing the experience and the mistakes and the learnings that we've had across the world, and trying to avoid the most we can this repeating of the same mistakes also in Africa. This is a big opportunity for Africa. I mean, it can basically leapfrog 2 decades of trial and error that we have all carried out in different parts of the world and benefit from that experience. And I think that remains a very, very important role for RES4Africa. If you look around, there are many, many institutions and associations and initiatives that work at different aspects of the development of Africa. But I think capacity building, so explaining and let's say demonstrating how solutions can be applied in Africa after the failures demonstrated elsewhere, can be a distinctive characteristics of RES4Africa, as it has been in the past 10 years. So, to make it brief, I think it's a really interesting time today in this big continent, and it's a fantastic opportunity for RES4Africa to continue to be an important player, a recognized force for good in Africa. So I really look forward to see what RES4Africa will do in the next 10 years and support it the best I can. I hope you enjoy the next day, and goodbye to everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Storace, in his absentia. We are now going to connect to Brussels, and one of our speakers is joining us virtually as well. So Ms. Laura Coetzee is going to be joining us. There she is. It's good to see you. Laura is the Chief Energy Modeler at IEA, and the floor is yours now. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and big greetings from Brussels to Roberto and all of you, and really hoping that next time I'll be able to join you or wherever the next RES4Africa meeting will take place. I will spend the next 5 minutes very briefly to describe the situation we are currently in terms of energy development globally and what's happening in Africa. And probably the urgency and the magnitude of this task of transforming the Africa's energy sector have never been greater than today, but nor have really the opportunities for transforming this sector. We have heard already from Roberto, but also from Mr. Storace. Still, 1 in every 2 people in sub-Saharan Africa don't have access to electricity, but we shouldn't forget that over the past decade, there have been incredible achievements also in the electricity access space. Basically, 2013 was the year where we measured, at the IEA, we are glad to be co-custodians with UN agencies, IRENA and others of SDG 7, and we measured that 2013 was actually the year in which we reached the peak of number of people that did not have the access to electricity. And this thanks to spectacular achievements in a number of countries like Kenya, Ghana, Senegal, Rwanda, that managed to really expand electricity access, many of them through distributed solutions and renewables. Then 2 years ago, COVID struck. And Roberto mentioned this. Unfortunately, we started seeing, and we still are seeing, a reversal of this progress. In two areas, not only we are connecting fewer people, but those people that actually had connections before cannot pay. And this is worsened with the current crisis. What is the current crisis? Here at the REA, we are really calling it the first global energy crisis. Why is that? We have lived the energy crisis before with very high oil prices. But today, we are seeing not only high oil prices, we are seeing very high gas prices, we are seeing very high coal prices. And this is putting governments in many places in the world, but particularly in African countries, facing very difficult choices. There is a shock for fuel, for food, that is bringing poverty and having countries choosing between paying the debts or supporting families. At the same time, many African countries are feeling the impact of climate change today. It's not tomorrow, it's today, it was yesterday. And we shouldn't forget that African citizens have contributed only to 3%, meaning nothing, to cumulative greenhouse gas emissions. So this is the backdrop against which we are all working. But I have to say that there are many, many causes for hope, and we are all looking forward to the Egyptian COP this year to really put Africa back into the center stage where it belongs, including for energy. Let me speak a couple of minutes now about renewables, because for us, this is really one of the key areas where we need to unlock, and we can go all together much faster. Globally, renewables were the only energy source that was resilient to COVID. We have continued seeing increasing installation of solar on wind in 2020, in 2021, and we're seeing a new record in 2022. We have done analysis, Roberto was kind enough to show an older version of that. We are updating that, but what we find, and I will come to that in a second, what we find is that solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, according to where you find yourself in Africa, is today the cheapest form to produce electricity, to connect people who are deprived, but also to generate economic growth for industries, for minerals, as mentioned by Starace, for a host of productive uses, including agriculture, so important today. So the one figure that Roberto mentioned already, but I want to say this again because it's so important. When we measure how much solar capacity is installed in Africa today, on 24th of May 2022, this is less than what the Netherlands have installed today, with 80 times more population, 700 times the land area, and twice as much solar irradiation. This is something we can fix altogether, and we should fix quickly. So in our analysis, renewables can meet over 80% of the electricity capacity need over this decade, and not because this is an imperative of the global clean energy transition, because this is what makes economic sense for Africa. So, is this a given? Not really. We need to increase investment sixfold compared to today, and this is a large amount, asking for a sixfold increase. But when we look at compared to what the global energy industry is investing today, it's very small. We are talking about a few percentage points. So I think that the world has an undeniable role here to play to increase financial flows for Africa, and it must be an unerring focus of the international community as we go towards COP in Egypt. And African leaders have a role to play, putting their strategies in place to reach universal access, as many of them have already done, and put their own vision to achieve net zero, to send a clear market signal in the direction of travel. So as we all gear up to the COP event in Egypt this November, we have been working luckily with the African Union Commission, UNEC, and the wonderful Vera Songwe team to put a special report on Africa and Africa Energy Outlook that we'll be launching on the 20th of June. I've just given you, in a bit of a hidden way, some of the key findings. I invite you to follow us on the 20th of June, and wish RES4Africa and all of you a wonderful event. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Laura Kotzi, who is the Chief Energy Modeler at the International Energy Agency. And indeed, she does say that African governments need to rethink the strategies. In addition to that, also need to rethink the models and the frameworks that we have on the African continent. So our next speaker is the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Italy. Allow me introduce Ms. Marina Sereni. A round of applause for her. If you want to change your glasses.
Everybody, thank you very much. Dear Secretary General, dear Roberto, dear President, ladies and gentlemen, I am very glad to be here today at the annual conference of RES4Africa, marking the 10th anniversary of the activity of your prestigious foundation, which over the years has supported the crucial topics of energy access and transition in Africa, in line with the 2030 Agenda. Indeed, we all share the necessity to promote access to cheap, safe, and sustainable energy in Africa, as well as favorable conditions for investments in the energy sector. Italy devotes a strategic attention to Africa, based on a bilateral and multilateral agenda. Our activity is developed on the basis of a multidimensional strategy where the contribution, the expertise, and the knowledge of Italian civil society, enterprises, foundations, and NGOs are essential cornerstone of our outreach policies. Last summer, a session of the Matera Foreign Minister meeting under Italy's G20 presidency entirely focused on Africa, in particular on the issues of social inclusion, green and sustainable development. Afterwards, in October 2021, we organized in Rome Encounters with Africa, the third edition of the Italy-Africa Ministerial Conference, with a focus on environment, energy, and sustainable and green development. The OECD Ministerial Council meeting, chaired by Italy, taking place in a few days in Paris, will be a unique opportunity to engage with key African partners on productive investments, including the participation of SMEs and focus on youth empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, the issues of access to energy and energy transition in Africa remain among the pressing topics related to our presence in Africa. And we heard a lot of ideas and whys for this. As a matter of fact, population growth is going to enormously increase energy demand in the continent. By 2030, half of all Africans will live in cities, while by the end of the century, 13 of the largest megalopolis worldwide will be located in Africa. Today, about 600 million Africans have no access to electricity, and the key question will be how renewable energy can help improving livelihood and social well-being. Off-grid systems, such as third-generation mini-grids, hydrogen from renewables, solar energy, and wind power are opportunities that might contribute to generating synergies between the two shores of the Mediterranean Seas, exploiting climatic diversity and seasonal cycles. Cutting the costs of renewable technologies and combining digital revolutions and progresses in the energy sector shall also be a priority goal of our engagement in the African continent. In parallel, developing modern transmissions and distribution infrastructures will be key for achieving wider access to energy. This includes large investments that shall involve local communities. Through the Italian Development Cooperation, we finance initiatives that, especially in the rural areas, aim at improving irrigation infrastructures, enhancing solar-powered food storage and processing systems, assuring clean and safe cooking. In the light of all this, Italy may well be figured as a sort of energy bridge to Africa, from traditional sources to the most innovative clean ones, thanks to the leadership of our private sector and the recurrent Italian presence in regional and worldwide formats concerning the topics at stake. The world has been changing dramatically in the last months, and Africa is already paying a high price for the Russian aggression in Ukraine. The energetic crisis is causing severe consequences on consumers, producers, and the large part of the population who depends on energy for its survival. Transportation, agriculture, trade will be affected by the increasing prices of fuel and gas, upsetting furtherly to the ongoing worst food crisis Africa has ever experimented in last decades. For all these reasons, now more than ever it's important to invest in green energy, to provide each country with the opportunity to diversify its sources of energy. In order to reach this goal, it is crucial for Italy and the EU to clearly confirm our full commitment to Africa, transforming the promises we made over the last years into reality. In this respect, the Global Gateway Initiative, launched at the EU-AU Brussels Summit last February, will have to become operational as soon as possible to help promoting a connectivity and energy transition, hence boosting the overall development of the African continent. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those remarks. Our next speaker is the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to Italy, His Excellency Mr. Youssef Bala. Mr. Youssef, a warm welcome to you, and the floor is yours now.
Buongiorno, consentitemi di fare il mio intervento in italiano. Signora Vice Ministra, onorevole, signor Presidente, signor Segretario Generale, consentitemi innanzitutto di ringraziarvi per il vostro gentile invito a questo convegno annuale che coincide con il 10° anniversario della vostra fondazione. Inutile dire che questo 10° anniversario è un'opportunità per fare il punto sui vostri successi, per proiettarvi nel futuro, ma anche per ricordarvi gli inizi di questa esperienza che state celebrando oggi e che è iniziata in Marocco. Da parte nostra siamo lieti di questa collaborazione che ha continuato a dimostrare nel corso degli anni che il Regno del Marocco è davvero questo alleato forte e affidabile in termini di transizione energetica per il suo continente africano così come per l'Europa, grazie al suo impegno e alle sue ambiziose politiche in questo settore in particolare. Abbiamo appreso con grande interesse che RES4Africa parteciperà al vertice mondiale Power Weeks organizzato a Marrakech dal 22 al 24 giugno prossimo dall'Istituto Marocchino per la ricerca sull'energia solare e le nuove energie. Questo evento di punta, volto alla creazione di una piattaforma regionale dedicata all'idrogeno verde e alle sue applicazioni in tutta l'economia, sarà un'occasione imprescindibile per i responsabili politici, i leader dell'industria, gli esperti di ricerca e gli innovatori mondiali per discutere in modo approfondito sul Power Weeks. Vorrei concludere il mio intervento dicendo che il Marocco è ricco di enormi opportunità nel settore dell'energia rinnovabile che lo rendono un partner prioritario nel bacino euro-mediterraneo. Offre inoltre agli investitori un clima economico competitivo e favorevole con molti vantaggi in termini di green business. Inoltre, grazie alla sua posizione geografica ottimale e alle sue eccezionali risorse nelle energie rinnovabili, il Marocco è un attore chiave nello sviluppo del settore dell'idrogeno verde a livello regionale e può rappresentare fra il 4 e il 6% della produzione mondiale di molecole verdi. Vorrei concludere ringraziando per il gentile invito e vi auguro una buona continuazione dei lavori. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And would now like to still again connect to our screens. And we are going to be hearing from Mr. Francesco La Camera, who is the Director General. I beg your pardon? Oh, right. It's Ken Dons. Yes, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon for that. Ken Dons, it's good to see you on our screens. I apologize for that. I apologize for that. And he is the Director General for INPAR at the European Commission. So I guess it's early morning where you are. Or it's about.
No, it's Brussels. It's Brussels.
It's Brussels, yes, where you are. It's about the same time we're having on this side.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well,
You have
thanks
5
a lot. And
minutes.
no worries. Happy to intervene whenever suits you. So first of all, I mean, Roberto Salvatore, many thanks for having me with you, and congratulations, of course, for your 10th anniversary. I mean, I guess for a setting like this, it's more exciting to have a speaker that disagrees with what has been said before, but no doubt more reassuring and more encouraging to have someone who agrees. And I'm therefore very happy to belong to that second category. And therefore, I will touch upon a few things, several things actually, that have been said already, but maybe look at it from a slightly different angle, bringing a slightly different perspective. And for all of you being in the country that invented perspective in the early 15th century, Brunelleschi, I hope you appreciate the importance of a slightly different perspective. I mean, obviously, these are dramatic times for energy, and it reminds us that we cannot talk about energy without talking about geopolitics. I mean, during the First World War, actually, the then First Lord of Admiralty, Winston Churchill, instigated the Royal Navy's transition from coal to oil, because he wanted to make the British fleet faster than its German counterpart. But this shift from secure coal mines to uncertain oil supplies also marked the start of a really new era, redefining the geopolitics of energy. The rest, of course, is history. If we now fast forward to today, then we see how, unlike Europe, North America, and East Asia, whose development paths depended on the use of coal and fuel during the 19th and 20th century, Africa can take a 21st century path and industrialize without the same amounts of coal or fuel through the use of cleaner natural gas and renewable energy sources. And that brings me to a first point: why supporting Africa's clean energy transition matters in this geopolitical context. The energy transition will really be a key determinant of Africa's future social and economic growth and productivity, because despite the abundance of energy resources, sub-Saharan Africa remains the region with the largest energy access deficit and the most electricity impoverished region in the world. I mean, figures have already been quoted. Electricity access rate for the region is about 47%, meaning that more than 640 million Africans have no access to electricity. Power consumption per capita in sub-Saharan Africa is a mere 180 kilowatt hours compared to 6,500 in Europe. And whilst Africa is home to 17% of the world's population, the continent accounts for only 4% of global power supply investment. Now, if we add to that the challenge of climate change, which is hitting Africa hard, and then especially the rural area, we've seen how agricultural productivity growth has been reduced by 34% since 1961 because of climate change. If we add to this mix the ongoing geopolitical tensions and the volatility in the markets for energy that this causes, which disrupts energy access even more seriously, and we've seen in Africa soaring prices, then I think all makes it a no-brainer and sheds a stark light on why the EU's partnership with Africa, built around green transition, is so important. Now, we build this partnership departing from three premises. First of all, realism. I mean, renewable energy sources, primarily solar, wind, water, geothermal, cannot provide Africa with a full solution short time, even when combined with hydro power. Second principle, diversification. The sheer magnitude of Africa's electricity challenge means that one type of energy resource or fuel type will be insufficient. And while in the short to medium, hydrocarbons remain in the energy mix, it has become urgent to ramp up cooperation on renewable energies and clean energy technologies such as hydrogen. And the third principle is resilience. We need to encourage the long-term development of resilient and sustainable energy markets so that Africa can build its energy autonomy. Now, we're actually on track to deliver and enhance that cooperation with Africa. In February, a few months ago at the EU-AU summit here in Brussels, African and European heads of state and government have confirmed that they were keen to push these partnerships, including and especially on the green energy transition. And that brings us to a brand name we use a lot these days. It's called Global Gateway. Global Gateway is really Europe's positive offer, a value-based proposition that puts Europe in the market as a partner of reference, offering sustainable, high standard, high quality investment in a respectful partnership that creates links but not dependencies. Our tool to deliver global gateways are flagships and Team Europe initiatives. And at the EU-AU summit, leaders agreed, put forward an investment package of at least 150 billion euros to boost these kind of infrastructure investments in Africa and speed up the twin digital and energy transition, and also invest in the human development, skills development that is needed to accompany this. And one of the real highlights of this Global Gateway partnership is the Africa-EU Green Energy Initiative that will contribute to Africa's ambition to increase renewable energy generation capacity by 300 gigawatts by 2030. We will focus in particular on three issues. First of all, increasing regional electricity interconnections and market integration through our support for the Continental Power System Master Plan, and then the technical assistance for the development of the African single electricity market. Secondly, our support will focus on developing just energy transition partnerships with African countries, sector reforms, and to unlock strategic investment. It's the kind of thing we started to pilot with South Africa and with Senegal. And thirdly, we will promote cooperation with partners on clean hydrogen production through research and innovation, improved regulatory frameworks, and facilitating direct investment and undistorted trade. And that's the case of what we are building with Namibia, with South Africa, or with Kenya. To deliver all that, we will work with innovative arrangements. First of all, we have Team Europe. Team Europe is really a prerequisite to success because it combines the collective force and firepower of Europe at the union level, of our member states, of our development finance institutions, and of our private sector. Second innovation, EFSD+. This is our guarantee that allows us to de-risk investments and to build a robust pipeline of bankable projects. The EFSD Plus will really de-risk and intervene and facilitate all of that. So to conclude, we stand at a juncture where huge shifts in technology, geopolitics, climate and energy will really demand that we redefine the energy landscape for years to come. And amidst these challenging and fast-paced shifts, there's real momentum in our view for Africa and Europe to deliver a just energy transition and to establish long-term, mutually beneficial partnerships. And so we are very keen to continue our dialogue and our work with RES4Africa to that end. You have been fabulous supporters of this endeavor. You are key players. And I think that if the past 10 years' progress in the field of energy are an indication of how far we can go in the next 10 years, then there's a lot of hope for the future. Again, happy anniversary and rendezvous in not 10 years' time, but hopefully shorter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cohen Doens, who is the Director General in power at the European Commission. He did mention that Africa has diverse opportunities and potential, and there are certain countries that have merged all of these renewable energy solutions. Kenya, for instance, that he mentioned, has wind power investments, geothermal investments, as well as solar investments. And so understanding the market and knowing where exactly to put investments is very important. Our next speaker is Mr. Francesco La Camera, who is the Director General for the International Renewable Energy Agency, and he's going to be talking to us also, sharing his remarks about the last 10 years, but also what the future should focus on. And he's also joining us virtually. Let's connect to him.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you, Roberto. Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is my great pleasure to be with all of you today on the 10th anniversary of the RES4Africa Foundation and contribute to rich discussions about renewable energy development in Africa. I really regret not being with you in person. You know how much I appreciate what RES4Africa and its partners have been able to accomplish over the years. Africa is at crossroads, confronting the challenges of energy access, climate change, and socioeconomic development. On the other hand, it is also clearly aware of the immense promise that a successful energy transition holds for improving the life of its people. However, the continent only receives 2% of the global investments in renewable energy. Moreover, access to clean and affordable energy remains an aspiration for many households and enterprises across this vast and diverse continent. Billion people, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, lack access to electricity and modern energy services for cooking. Climate change is fast adding new challenges and posing a new threat to food security in many places. Extreme climate vulnerability may compromise the social and economic achievement that Africa's economies and people have made to date, while clouding the prospect for sustainable development. We know that an energy system centered on renewables can help resolve many of Africa's social, economic, health, and environmental challenges. A profound energy transition is not only feasible, but in fact essential for a climate-safe future in which sustainable development prerogatives are met. Renewables are key to overcoming energy poverty and providing needed energy services without damaging human health or ecosystems. They are also key to enabling a transformation of economies in support of development and industrialization. Africa offers great opportunities in the renewable sector, while also presenting challenges. So, ladies and gentlemen, Africa needs a comprehensive policy framework to advance a just and inclusive energy transition and implement structural changes that will occur. Indeed, ARENA calls for a comprehensive, coordinated, yet regionally and nationally nuanced approach to mobilize resources and marshal policy action. The growing discourse on a Green Deal in place, like Europe and North America, affirms the importance of a bold, systemic approach and offers inspiration. A Green Deal also holds promise for Africa, but will need to be tailored to the continent's own circumstances. African leaders have an opportunity to articulate, map and assert their own energy transition and development agendas. Regional coordination can foster synergy among various countries and regions and raise the prospects for success by including in the journey also other stakeholders, including the private sector. I hope today's event will stimulate a lively discussion on accelerating Africa's renewable-powered energy transformation. I thank you and wish you all a very successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. La Camera. And our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Ms. Maria Shaw Baragan, who is the Director of Lending in Africa, the Caribbean, Pacific Asia, and Latin America at the European Investment Bank. And she's also joining us virtually. So a warm welcome to her and a round of applause for her as well as she joins us.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the establishment of RES4Africa, and allow me to apologize for not being able to join you physically in Rome, as when you see this message, I will be in Ghana. As a partner of RES4Africa and a member of the Renew Africa network since July 2019, the European Investment Bank welcomes the opportunity to celebrate this anniversary to mark 10 years of RES4Africa Foundation's active engagement in fostering an enabling environment to accelerate Africa's transition towards clean energy generation. The partnership between RES4Africa and the European Investment Bank is based on common goals and priorities, a commitment we both have to support scaling up of investments in Africa's energy sector and to ensure broader energy access through transformative net zero power generation. We achieve this through different but complementary roles. RES4Africa supporting policy dialogue, capacity building, and knowledge sharing, and the EIB as a provider of lending, blending, and advising, both to the private and the public sector, to support the creation of more investment and the development of sustainable energy markets from renewable resources. In this regard, I commend RES4Africa for the numerous engagements it has undertaken across Africa. I particularly wish to congratulate the Foundation for the successful conclusion of the 8th edition of the Advanced Training Course, its flagship capacity-building initiative dedicated to managers and professionals operating in the renewable energy sector in Africa. We were glad to contribute both as sponsors and as trainers towards the capacity building of over 300 participants from different African countries. We were also pleased to contribute last year towards RES4Africa's Young Talent of the Year Challenge, where brilliant young innovators from across Africa were awarded for their exemplary contributions in promoting clean energy solutions. Not only will the application of such innovative ideas benefit a large portion of the population, they also stand as examples for other innovators and entrepreneurs to follow on promoting climate action business solutions. Since setting priorities for Africa's sustainable energy transition is the theme of this important anniversary event, allow me to add the EIB's perspective with regards to our contribution towards this important topic. The European Investment Bank, the European Union's financial institution, has been operating in Africa since 1963. Over the past 10 years, we have provided a total of 26 billion euro of funding in the continent. Out of the energy projects we supported in Africa in 2021, we anticipate that an additional 374 gigawatts of electricity will be added to national grids, and all of this from renewable resources. We offer long-term financing for the substantial capital investment required for both physical capital, from large utility-scale solar and wind farms to mini-grids and even off-grid solar home systems. And also knowledge capital. We also work on energy transmission and distribution because we are committed to supporting access to affordable and reliable clean energy for Africans. In this context, we are engaged to support innovative green technologies that focus on reducing carbon emissions. Some of these, such as green hydrogen development, which we are very keen to support in countries like Namibia, which I recently visited, can be brought now to demonstration phase, scaling up to ensure sustainability and even replicability so that more and more countries can adopt such new technologies and improve their own green footprint. And why not export green energy to Europe? In order to harness market sounding and offer capacity building to our African partner countries, the European Investment Bank welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with RES4Africa and industry associations such as Renew Africa. It is partnerships like these that can make a real difference. When we join forces for a common goal of building Africa's clean energy capacity, enhance local ownership of sustainable renewable energy projects, improve local knowledge and skills, and capacitate the youth in seizing job opportunities. I would therefore like to conclude by congratulating RES4Africa and its Secretary General, Roberto Bigotti, and his team for their 10-year commitment and engagement to support Africa's efforts to build a stronger and more resilient future for its people. At the European Investment Bank, we stand ready to intensify our cooperation with you and other partners across Europe and Africa in line with our own climate objectives, in order to ensure that access to clean, reliable and affordable energy will no longer be a dream, but will indeed become a reality. Thank you for your attention and my best wishes for this event.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is the Chief of Energy, Infrastructure and Services at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. He's the man you want to listen to because he's going to show you where there is potential, where the opportunities are, but also what needs to be done from an investor perspective looking into Africa. Let's put our hands together for Robert Lisinge. Do you have slides?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you to represent Dr. Vera Songwe, the Executive Secretary of ECA. I have to say that we are delighted to have accompanied RES4Africa in the 10 years of your journey, Roberto, so far. The energy sector and infrastructure development at large are among the pillars of Africa's economic transformation. The pursuit of inclusive and sustainable development on the continent is guided by the ambitions of 2030 Agenda of the United Nations, of which we are part, and also of Agenda 2063 of the African Union. As part of the United Nations system, we are fully committed to helping African countries to achieve universal access to electricity and to ensure that this is done in a green and resilient manner. In 2021, implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area commenced. This has implications for the demand of energy, infrastructure, and services on the continent. Inadequate energy supply may hamper the full realization of the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Area. But this also provides huge opportunities for investment in energy sector, particularly renewable energies. The Economic Commission for Africa deals with energy sector from the perspective of private sector finance. In this context, we have had the opportunity to partner with RES4Africa to review the regulatory environment of electricity markets in 17 African countries. The private sector contributes just 3% to investment in energy infrastructure on the continent. This is low level of engagement could be attributed to regulatory hurdles. I think that is what Roberto calls the missing links. Our joint groundbreaking work led to assessments of the openness, attractiveness, and readiness of the regulatory environment for private sector investment in generation, transmission, and distribution, as well as off-grid assets and system operation in these countries. We do believe that this project will contribute significantly to crowding in private investment in the energy sector of Africa. It has helped to identify challenges in the regulatory environment of the concerned countries and has paved the way for necessary reforms in the sector. I think going forward, we would like to work with RES4Africa to pick a few of these countries and to ensure that these reforms take place. Ladies and gentlemen, the pursuit of sustainable infrastructure development in Africa today is taking place within the context of COVID-19 that led to significant impacts on the energy sector of the continent. COVID-19 also offers opportunities to design a package of measures that would accelerate green recovery. The joint RES4Africa, ECA, and Bocconi University study on the impact of COVID-19 on Africa's energy sector was a useful contribution to the understanding the impact that the pandemic has had on the continent of Africa. Energy transition, ladies and gentlemen, is critical in the global policy arena today. ECA's collaboration with RES4Africa has provided evidence of socioeconomic gains of energy transition in Africa, strengthening our advisory services to our member states. We have also partnered with RES4Africa to develop the ROA software to strengthen capacity of regulatory institutions on the continent to conduct their regulatory assessment. By engaging with the African Union Commission, we have expanded the scope of the work to develop a continental regulatory framework for crowding in private sector investment in Africa's electricity market value chain. We at ECA are proud of this and many other initiatives that we are partnering with the RES4Africa Foundation to implement. As RES4Africa celebrates its fruitful 10 years anniversary, ECA extends its good wishes for the next 10 years and renews our partnership and cooperation towards the achievement of SDG 7 on the continent in this decade of action. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Lissinge, Chief of Energy, Infrastructure and Services at UNECA, and Mr. Amit Singh, who is the Head of Energy Finance at Nedbank, is our next speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Singh to the podium. Mr. Singh, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
President of RES4Africa, Secretary General, respected leaders of the energy fraternity, Sanbonani, a warm African welcome and greetings to you all. Sanbonani. It is indeed a great pleasure for us to be here to share a few thoughts to the respected audience we have amongst us. Firstly, we would like to thank and congratulate the Foundation for the great work that they are doing. We down in southern Africa, or the southern part of Africa, we see the efforts and the work and the results that the Foundation is getting at grassroots levels. It's a name to be recognized, and I think we would like to congratulate all the teams of RES4Africa for their hard work and their efforts in ensuring the message of the just energy transition and the role of renewables in Africa's future. So my topic, or the few comments I would like to share, is that how do we get more private sector investment in the continent? And there's some clear thoughts we need to differentiate. You know, I sit in South Africa, and we have to differentiate between South Africa and the rest of Africa. It's really two different geographies. We like to think South Africa is like the America of Africa, but we're not there. But it's more developed than the rest of the continent. And it comes with its own different challenges. It's being one of the biggest polluters in the continent and in the world, in fact, and it has a big desire to change. And we see lots of efforts from the United Nations, the World Bank, the European Commission, everyone trying to ensure that South Africa pushes a strong energy transition. However, we see the political framework being different, and there's some handbrakes are up, because energy security seems to be the flavor of the month, and to shut off the big thermal fleet is going to really starve the economy of much needed power. So there's a balance that's needed, and the solution is still far from being achieved. We are seeing lots of power being delivered in South Africa, both through government programs in the renewables and in the private sector, the CNI, the corporate industrial sector, where big institutions, big mining houses, big industrial companies are developing their own programs. Anglo American, for example, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, has recently, you might have read, launched a 3.5 to 5 gigawatt renewable program. So they really want to get their whole mining operations into the renewables. And that is really leading the charge out of the energy transition in South Africa. Of course, the government programs are doing that. We're seeing lots of investment there, and those are bankable models, and there's no shortage of capital or private sector investment in South Africa for the energy transition. However, that's on the generation side. The big gap is that how do we get private sector investment for the grids and the distribution side of it. That is a huge, huge risk and a hole that we cannot find a solution. Be it the public-private partnership, or will government allow private sector to invest in that space? That is a gray area, and not much is being spoken about, and not much effort has been done. But without unlocking the grid, we will also fall very short in South Africa in terms of really getting the continent into the energy transition. So I hope the foundation will spend through the Grids for Africa initiatives, lots of thought leadership and lots of effort in really unlocking the grid. We have to pass the message that a public-private partnership may be the only way, because a utility has no money and they have no real energy or the skills really to really strengthen the grid and build the grid out. So that's South Africa. Then the rest of Africa, we have a huge problem. We know many developers love to develop projects, banks love to fund projects there, but the bankable model is lacking. And we might see a few small projects, 30, 40 megawatts of PV being done, a few small wind. Okay, North Africa is a bit different. We've seen mega projects there, the hundreds of megawatts of wind and PV. But the sub-Saharan Africa, a few small projects are not going to turn the dial. And the real bankable model is still missing. We understand what we have. We have countries are in financial distress, the debt to GDP out of things, the guarantees are not worth it. The utilities are bankrupt. There's only 1 or 2 real credit-worthy utilities in the continent. Private sector, the mines and some industrial companies will do a few small projects, but it's not going to solve the 600 million problem of energy shortage in the continent. And we still don't have the solution to a proper bankable model. Our colleagues from the European Commission spoke about some guaranteed structures for inter-grid or regional connection. Maybe that's part of it. But how do we develop a model where the world can almost credit enhance the utilities or form a super fund to give a first loss position, so that both private sector, commercial banks and DFIs can put money and develop these projects to get it rolled out to the scale that we want to do it. You know, we had many programs in the past. Scaling Africa had a few programs, GetFit had a few programs, but it was once-off programs. And if we design anything with the small once-off program, it's not going to achieve what we want to see in Africa. We will not get the 600 million people. We will not create jobs. We will not solve the unemployment. We will not solve the crime. We will not solve the climate crisis. So we need to have a huge responsibility to develop a real financing bankable model for the continent to roll out the scale that we need. And at this stage, we are still lacking, and that's our assessment. But we need to spend a lot of time and effort at all stakeholder levels to see how we get this bankable model. We know it's spoken a lot about it, but it's still not being implemented at grassroots level. So the foundation has been great work, and I think the first 10 years has been great, but I think the responsibility for the next 10 years is even bigger. If you really want to help Africa get out of its darkness, to create jobs, sort the climate crisis out, I think the foundation has a great responsibility. But I must compliment and congratulate all the members of the foundation, from the advisory board to the members of the team that's working hard, knocking at doors, crying for assistance and working hard at grassroots level. We are definitely seeing the efforts there. Congratulations, and we wish you all the best for the next 10 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Our next speaker is our youth representative. She basically represents Africa's young people. And so whatever you hear from her is what Africa's young people are going to be saying. Esther Wanza is the youth representative and co-founder, Ray Now Energy. A round of applause for her.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this event to mark 10 years of existence of the RES4Africa Foundation. This is really a great privilege to be here to celebrate the key milestones, the achievements of RES4Africa. And thank you for recognizing the voice of the youth and also making youth a key priority in the coming years. So I'll start my presentation with a story or just a story to show the context of an African home, what energy access means. Growing up in the rural areas of eastern parts of Kenya, lighting and cooking was an essential part of every household, but not much attention on sources of fuel used for this process. I was tasked with the responsibility of taking care of my siblings as the firstborn of 3. The main source of fuel was firewood and sometimes charcoal for cooking and kerosene for lighting. To me, this was not a problem. Furthermore, it's what everyone used and it's readily available. This notion changed when I was diagnosed with an eye problem, and the optician indicated this was due to exposure to smoke and poor lighting. I wanted to change this narrative for my young ones and my parents. And that's how I ended up pursuing a course in renewable energy for undergraduate program. I have so far installed a solar PV system for my parents and constructed an improved cook stove for my mother to deal with the indoor pollution. I've also widely involved myself in off-grid solar and clean cooking. I've supported over 1,000 women through offering business and technical advisory and helping them to develop businesses in the clean cooking and off-grid solar value chains that is under the Energy for Impact projects. Through this support, women have not only been able to increase access to improved cook stoves, but also been able to create jobs and earn income to take care of their families. Besides this, I co-founded Renau Energy with Paul Muia, Elio Rico, and Kennedy Ngacha, a startup focused on providing sustainable energy solutions to health centers in most off-grid areas of Kenya. One of the implemented projects is the solarization of Juja Farm Health Center through the support of the Microgrid Academy Young Talent of the Year Award 2020 by RES4Africa Foundation. The key impact from this project is this health center has been able to achieve cooling services for its vaccine. One thing to note is previously they used to transport their vaccine to a nearby health center for cooling services, and in the evening they'll bring them, in the morning they transport to the nearby health center, and in the evening they bring it back to the hospital for use. The administrator at the center indicated that the services from the solar PV system is able to offer the cooling services not only for the health center, but to the surrounding dispensaries. And also the the mortality rate has reduced as they are able to offer 24-hour maternity services. Renau Energy has diversified its product and services, offering beyond electrification of health centers to offer EPC solutions for commercial and industrial facilities. And one key project is supporting a 50-kilowatt grid-tied solar system at Umoja Flour Mills in Thika. and also offering solar installation for residential purposes. I'm also a member of the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, an initiative whose mission is to ensure youth inclusion in the energy transition and ensure those who are, I'm sure those who have interacted with the constituency know the impact this has had in ensuring youth voices are included in energy transition, and there is speedy action from governments and private sector. All this said and done, what are the key priorities for RES4Africa in the coming years? RES4Africa has highlighted some of the key topics to be considered in the coming years. That is awareness creation, capacity building, policy and regulation, scaling finance, and supporting development of infrastructure. Africa faces a challenge of low-skilled labor, and especially on renewable energy technologies. RES4Africa can leverage its broad experience in training and its broad network of partners to design and implement innovative training programs in these areas. A key area is development of an innovation hub or a school offering training on renewable energy technologies. The hub will serve as a space for people to develop their ideas into products. One thing to note is that many African youths go to school with the aim of getting employment. So offering a training for employment can make RES4Africa attractive, and RES4Africa can support youth trained to get hands-on experience through matchmaking with the most established companies. Additionally, RES4Africa can develop a program focused on the younger generation in high schools and colleges to build their capacity in renewable energy sector, to develop initiatives to raise awareness, foster dialogues towards curriculum development in the renewable energy space. Initiatives like the Microgrid Young Talent of the Year Award has really provided African entrepreneurs with the opportunity to contribute to the energy transition. And this is a commendable work by RES4Africa. An incubation hub for the African youths who have been beneficiaries of this award will go a long way in supporting energy entrepreneurship in youths in Africa. The SDG 7 Youth Constituency has given the opportunity to many youths in Africa to contribute and bring ideas and views in the global forum. The Youth Sustainable Energy Hub under the constituency is a big milestone. However, the initiative lacks enough funding support. RES4Africa, through its partners, can mobilize funds to support youth-led initiatives like the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub under the constituency. And finally, RES4Africa can work towards making Africa a manufacturing hub for renewable energy technologies so as to reduce the costs of project implementation. In conclusion, today's event is about setting priorities for Africa's energy transition. In 10 years, RES4Africa will be celebrating 20 years of its anniversary. I don't want the narrative to be the same. I want us to celebrate the new Africa, and that begins with the actions, the investments, and the collaboration we set today. Let's act today, let's act when we leave this forum to make Africa a modern Africa where energy access is not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther Wanza, youth representative and also co-founder of Array Energy. And on that youthful note, I would like for us to take a coffee break. There's been too much talk.
What do we think of when we say
and
Africa?
Before, just give me a second, please.
Today, the most
Before we watch the video as we have our coffee, I'd like to remind us that when we come back, I'm done being nice. The niceness was only for the opening session. So when we come back, time is going to be a factor. So if you have 15 minutes, it's going to be 14 and a half minutes. If you have 1 hour, it's going to be 55 or 59.5 minutes. So let's keep time. As we have our coffee break, I would like to request that instead of 20 minutes, we take 10 and come back here because we've eaten into 5 minutes of our time. Thank you very much.
What do we think of when we say Africa? Today, the most reasonable answer would be growth. Africa is growing at an unrelenting speed in terms of demographics, economics, urbanization, and digitalization. And as any growth, Africa's development is coming with a huge potential for investments and a huge need for energy. Good news. The world's fastest growing continent is also one of the richest areas in terms of renewable energy potential. Wind, sun, water, geothermal. Wild forces of nature ready to be turned into energy. Pure, powerful, renewable energy. But nature won't turn into electricity all by itself. It needs technology, workforce, infrastructure, know-how, in one word, investments. Despite Africa's huge potential, only 2% of the world's added renewable energy capacity was installed here in the last decade. Why is it so hard to invest in renewable energy in Africa? Because it's not always a fertile land for private investments, with geopolitical and financial risks, insufficient support to investors throughout the project cycle. Learning how to deal with this background will unlock renewable energy investments at scale, providing Africa with the energy it needs. There are many existing European schemes supporting investments in Africa. Their impact is still low as they are marked by a high level of fragmentation. How can we stimulate investments in Africa when public money alone is not enough? By providing a new integrated program built on best practices and combining policies, regulations, financing, and de-risking, it will reduce fragmentation and create synergies among the existing instruments. Renew Africa. A powerful industry-backed initiative with the mission to scale up renewable energy in Africa, creating a comprehensive one-stop shop to enable and de-risk investments.